Welcome to the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast, a podcast where we're seeking to lead change. We're also seeking to understand. We're also here as a platform for leaders to come together to unite, to develop and empower other leaders in the areas of business, family, and entrepreneurship. I am your host, Lafayette Lane, joined by our co-host, John LeBrun. Today, we are joined by our special guest, Aaron Smith. Put those hands together, put those clap emojis in the comments section. Aaron has joined us to have an amazing conversation today on how you can escape the odds. Aaron is the founder of the Escaping the Odds podcast, and he inspires to empower the formerly incarcerated and disadvantaged to reach their full potential through entrepreneurship. Aaron, thanks for coming on.
Hey man, thank you all for having me, man. I'm really excited about it. Let's get it going, man.
Absolutely. Man, let's just jump right into your story, man. I think you have an amazing story of the fiber of our podcast is leadership, entrepreneurship, and personal development. And we believe that everybody has a story, right? Everybody has a story that can empower someone, that can uplift someone, and that can really encourage someone that may think that what they've been through, there's no way out of it. There's no way up from where they are. And I believe that you are a prime example of someone that literally, like your podcast says, that has escaped the odds. Can you just give our audience your background story? We know that you are a great entrepreneur now, but take us back to how you got to the weather place that you are today.
No, absolutely, man. I think I was a pretty good entrepreneur back then. I was just selling the wrong product,
Yeah.
I was selling the wrong product, so I had to switch hustles on that. But born and raised on the south side of Chicago, gang, drug violence, the normal kind of stuff, man. But there was something different about me. I always valued education and wanted to do something different from what I seen out in my community. I was the youngest of five, very ambitious guy, and I think that was part of my downfall. Like the ambition was driven in the wrong direction. And so end up going to college, just kind of fast forward a little bit, going to college, was 1 foot in, 1 foot out in the streets, but also going to college at the same time because I knew the value of education, but also was lured in by the, fast cash and just wanted to get things quicker, that immediate gratification. And so end up going to federal prison not too long after I got my bachelor's degree in business management for running a heroin operation here in Chicago. I was one of like 47 people indicted federally. That was like my first case ever. I had some misdemeanors here and there, but nothing major to that magnitude. And that really kind of opened my eyes, as it should have, once the state of the United States versus Aaron Smith, I was like, wow, I missed some deep stuff. And so eventually, subsequently, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute heroin and fentanyl. And that was in like 2009. And I was 27 years old when I went away. I got sentenced to 12 years of incarceration in the federal system. I did a little bit over 9.5 years. And I came home in 2019 with a renewed mind. My desires of my heart had changed. Like I wasn't a bad person, just made a whole lot of bad decisions. I was trying to chase fast money. And with that came with some consequences that I had to face up to, and so I did that. But that's pretty much the root of it at the end of the day. And here I am, man, escaping the odds, and entrepreneurship is my passion. Prison reform is my passion. So being able to blend those two together and make it work.
Yeah. You said something there that I really want you to kind of dig into.
All right.
Before you got out, you said you were able to renew your mind. You had a shift in mindset.
Yeah.
What happened while you were in prison, while you were incarcerated, that you were able to do not a 360 but a 180?
180. Absolutely, for sure. Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, I believe it was more so even prior to me being incarcerated. I was on bond for a while, so I had the chance to kind of see the error of my ways, like seeing how it affect most of all, like my mom, not even myself, because I kind of knew this day was inevitable. You know what I mean? Like you don't sell drugs at that level, and you get away with it, right? Not most people. And so I'm like, man, I really sold myself short. Here I am, a person with a bachelor's degree in business management. You know what I mean? Like and I'm indicted federally. You know what I mean? I could have did something else with my time. You know what I mean? But so just kind of really got into my word real heavy. And just God just got to speaking to me like, man, you know, it's not over. Although I had to convince myself that it wasn't over, right? Because here I am looking at this mountain of time that I have to do, and just kind of really figuring out how I'm going to get through it. Like, what am I going to do? Like, this is my first time going away to prison. I knew I was going to prison. I just didn't know for how long. And so, but once I got to prison, I really built up my network behind the wall. I really started kind of building with men that was like-minded, such as myself, and like was of the Christian faith. And so, again, just seeing the error of my ways and like, man, you know what? I could have did so much better, you know. And so with that, started really digging deep and finding soul searching and finding out who I was. And during that time, I was like, hey, you know, entrepreneurship is like always been in love with business, you know. And so I had the opportunity to meet a lot of men that were incarcerated or white collar offenders, or even that was quote unquote successful in their illicit activities. And so I kind of just started picking their brain, more so the white collar guys, because I had never really been in the same room with these men. And that really helped change the trajectory of my life. But most importantly, it was my faith in God.
So you were incarcerated for, is it 12 years?
No, 9 years and 5 months. So almost 9.5 years.
9 years and 5 months. You had that down. Yeah. Okay. That's a long time. I mean, I think 1 month would feel like a really long time, right?
Yeah.
9 years and 10 months. Okay. Can you walk us through, like, what is it like spending that much time in prison and then all of a sudden you get released and you're expected to sort of contribute? Like, I mean, I feel like you would almost, to me, it would almost, you ever spend a whole day or 2 days in the house and then you walk out and it's bright and sunny and you're like, wow, it's a whole new world out here. I feel like, I'm not saying you're inside that long, but I almost feel like a similar feeling must come about you when you're in a prison and all of a sudden, all right, peace out. And you're like, now what do I do? Can you walk us through that?
Yes, it's a culture shock for sure. Technology had changed so much. You got to think when I went inside, Facebook was around, but it wasn't a part of a person's everyday life. You know, cell phones were around, but again, you didn't walk around like they didn't have like the smartphones. So your whole life wasn't wrapped into your cell phone as it is now, and so that was a really big adjustment for me. But I think more importantly, like just being able like to have that confidence in yourself. Like I had a whole lot of hope. Like my faith in God gave me a whole lot of hope. And I prepared so much when I was away. Like from day one, I was thinking about the last day. You know what I mean? And so I really prepared for it. So I think my situation may have been a little different from other people that I've encountered. You know what I mean? Because I was so prepared and so using that ambition that I had, it's like, okay, I'm gonna make something of myself, right? But at the same time, there's still that self-doubt that you have, like, man, you know, when I get out, you know, you have that anxiety, you know, like even for someone that really prepared, and I was probably looked at as a model, quote unquote model inmate. You know, I was most likely to succeed, you know, if there was a category for someone that was leaving prison. But still, nevertheless, it was still that preparation and that culture shock that I had to overcome, and just being, to be honest, just being scared that, you know, all my plans wouldn't materialize as I thought they would or as I thought they should. You know, throughout the time while I was incarcerated, I was planning for it. So it was really, for the most part, that culture shock, just being able to believe in yourself and to know to take your time and be patient. That's something I'm still learning to this day.
The reason I ask is, and you have a podcast, right? Escaping the Odds. Sir. Is that correct? And in your most recent episode, you interviewed a man named Richard Bronson, not Branson, Bronson, who was a partner. If anybody's seen the movie Wolf of Wall Street, he was one of the partners in that whole dilemma. And I've never seen the whole movie. Honestly, I saw 5 minutes and I turned it off. It was a little much. But he mentioned coming out of prison homeless, And so that's what brought the question to mind. He came out of homeless and then out of there, and he was homeless right to start, saying, because now he's doing well, but it said it took him several years to get there, and he was only in, I think, a couple of years. You were in 9, and so now 75%, he said, of the inmates returned to prison, which is a huge number. So you're saying you were part of that model 25. They said he'll probably be fine once he gets done. What is it we're missing about then that 75%? Like, if we could even flip it to where 25% returned and 75% were now productive members of society chasing their dreams. Like, what are we missing here? That's why I asked, can you walk us through that step when you first get out? What does that feel like? Because for him, it was homeless. And I could see how they couldn't, like, well, this is what I know how to do. I need to go back to it because I have to survive.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think there's a couple things. One thing is the person, right? Internally, like wanting to like do something different, as you stated. Like for some people, this is all they did their whole life. For me, this wasn't all I did my whole life. You know what I mean? Like again, I had went to college, so I knew how to maneuver in any kind of environment. Like some people that I grew up with, like the streets, that's what they know. Like some of them not gonna do anything different. So to expect someone to change their stripes like instantly without any kind of a assistance while they are inside, it's like you're asking the recipe for disaster. Let's keep it real. You know what I mean? It's not really going to materialize for that person. So I've seen that. I've seen people on one hand not really prepare to leave. Everybody is ready to go, but everybody's not prepared to go. You know, and so I've seen that. But then I also seen, far as from a systemic standpoint, like the courses and the rehabilitation, quote unquote, is not there. You know, but then I seen when people come home and have a great support network. That's another huge piece of it, right? I had a great supporting cast. You know, like my safety net, if you will, was like outstanding. You know, and I think that's very important. I was just thinking when I was in the halfway house, all this love and support that I was receiving, if I didn't have that, like, it'd be that much more difficult to survive, and I may have become part of that 75% or that 60%, whatever that recidivism rate number is. But so I would say the main two things is, of course, internally that person want to do something differently, and then two, like that support network that you have once you leave prison. Have that.
I think that's really good, but I just to add on to that, Aaron and John, that's an excellent question that you asked, John. I think thirdly, you talked about the systemic piece. It's hard for someone not to go back to jail because they can't get a job if you have a record.
A felony.
Right? So if you have a felony, and a felony can be, you know, from marijuana, whatever that, you know, smallest to biggest, from one mistake, they have a mark on their life for the rest of their life due to the systemic structure of prison. Now we're talking about prison pipeline, how prison is a business, and that all stems from leadership, right? So how can that, you talk about flipping from the 75% to the 25%, how can they flip it when the only resort they can go back to is going back to the streets because there's nothing for them to go to when they get out, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Y'all scared to talk? All right.
No, you're good.
Okay. So I'm currently reading a book by Emmanuel Acho. Okay. Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. I was reading yesterday about this same issue, about the prison pipeline in the industry. And so flipping that would be great, but it all really goes back to changing the system.
Yes.
Right. And it's not, I think it's amazing. And I hope our audience catches, you were a college degree inmate.
Yes.
Because I think we have this misconception that everybody that's in prison is either dumb, or they're from the hood, or they're black, and all of these misconceptions. When you really don't realize that a lot of people that are in prison are a lot smarter than everybody that's out in population.
Yeah. I didn't want to say it, man, but you said
no, go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
I've met some of the most creative, ingenious, guys, man, that like to this day, like some of my best buddies, I consider them like brothers of mine, and like really, one area that I really learned a lot about was the financial markets. Right, this is just an example of like learning high finance behind the wall. Right, I should have learned this in college, but I didn't. Right, I didn't take a course on options or investment banking and things like that. And I was a business major. Right, I learned that from the men that were the white collar offenders, the CEOs that embezzled $100 million, right? That was my school of hard knocks, right? So to speak to the mindset of some of the people that were there, like they were brilliant, you know, just that, you know, they made the wrong decision. I think like we all are fallible, you know what I mean? Like we all can fall short, you know what I mean? So let us not judge. Now, no doubt there are some people that needs to be there, you know what I mean, for a long time, right? But the men that I came across that was in my circle, like I would trust them with my lives. Like you guys will have a conversation with them as you have one with me today and in previous times. Like you never know that they have been incarcerated, right? And they probably spent 20, 25 years incarcerated. And so I would love for the audience to kind of know that, just to kind of think twice about who you think is behind that wall. And as I continue to do my podcast, Escaping the Odds, like I knew the stories were out there because I was inside with these men, right? But when I was inside, I'm like, I got to get these stories out to society. That was one of the main reasons why I did the podcast. I wanted to change the narrative of what society thought of a person that was incarcerated and what they can become in the entrepreneurship arena. And because I knew these men were entrepreneurs at heart, you know, some of them were doing illegal things, but all of them were doing illegal things. But at the end of the day, they were dynamic people. You know what I mean? I wanted the world to know that. And as I continue to do these stories, I come across like amazing people. I'm like, man, where have you been? Like, you know, how come your story isn't out there? And so I hope with Escaping the Odds, like I changed that. Like people are like, wow, did you hear the story of such and such, you know? And they got the story from Escaping the Odds. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think that that's so good because not allowing your mistake to define you, not allowing your past to define you. Here it is, not allowing your record or what people deem as a record to define you. Because again, it's very hard that we say prison is a rehabilitation place, but then there's no place for the prisoners to go once they're released because of systemic issues that we have as a nation. So it starts at the root, right? Prison, for those that don't know, is one of the wealthiest businesses in the world. It's not a place that, why do you think they're so overpopulated? Because they're privately owned, and a lot of people, you talk about white collar, there's a lot of white collar investors that have opened prisons. So they have prison pipelines and things of that nature.
No, that's a whole nother show for sure. Like,
absolutely. I know I'm talking right. I know people that listen to this, they not like what I'm saying. What I'm saying is facts.
It's absolutely fact. It's called the prison industrial complex. You know, that's
absolutely.
It goes deep. Some of your biggest corporations and retailers are inside of prisons. You know, low wage slave labor type of. It gets crazy. So
make license plates. Clean the highway.
Well, I think license plates was kind of like the old school stuff from like the 70s, but like you have some of your biggest names out there. It's like people are actually manufacturing clothing. Call centers are behind the wall now, right? So that person that you may be speaking to about your local whatever cable bill, whatever it may be, could be someone behind the wall, right? And they're not getting paid those same wages that someone will be getting paid on the outside. But also, like, in the, not want to say defense, but like to kind of give some kudos. There are some companies out there that are really going inside the prison and like really doing some great work. I have a good friend of mine. He's like a mentor of Mr. Sean Hosman. He has an organization called Persevere Now, where he teaches full stack coding inside of several prisons throughout the country. And so you have people like him and organizations like that that are really rehabbing or really giving men and women a second opportunity or a third opportunity to be able to have a skill set when they come out, that they're not part of that 75%. So I want to shout out those people as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the minority, though, unfortunately.
Right. We got a long way to go. We're making progress.
Because if I'm mistaken, unless I'm mistaken, like a felony sticks with you forever. Is that right? It never drops off.
In most cases, my case is a federal case. So in order for me to have my case expunged as you can in the state system, I will have to get a pardon, like from the president.
Yeah. Good luck.
Not
right?
how problem, right? You know what I mean? So I'll work on it, but I won't hold my breath with it.
So I used to work at a warehouse when I first got out of college, and the person who ran it, her husband, I didn't know this for probably about 3 or 4 years into it. Then he's mid to late 60s at the time, and he had told me once that he had a felon, and basically he was 18. He was dating a girl who was 17. They decided her dad was a police officer, and they decided that they were in love, and he didn't want them to date. So he said, let's go to, I hear you can get married in West Virginia. So just being kind of stupid, they went to West Virginia. They got there. This is decades ago. And he was, I think, like I said, he was 18. So you're talking 40 years had passed. And 45. And he still had this on his record. And basically he got in trouble. He got a felon, is convicted felon for kidnapping. Right. And taking someone, kidnapping across state lines, which is a big no-no. But it didn't, like, everything has a certain perspective or more of a story behind it besides, hey, he kidnapped somebody, took him across state lines. He didn't come and take somebody's 5-year-old and just leave, right? And so that sticks with him. That's with him forever. He can't get rid of it unless you, like as you said, he gets a pardon. He's never tried to. I'm telling you, the nicest person in the world. It's not like he's never done anything wrong before that. After that, it's anytime he gets a job, he's like, I have to tell him, and they're usually like, but he works and he makes it work, but he'll never make more than $20 an hour type of thing.
But like when employers actually look up not even look up your case, but they see this X on your record when they do the background check. They're not looking at the context of that situation. Like you explained that to us, right? It's like you're saying, okay, it was an 18-year-old, 17-year-old. He went across state line. All they're going to see is kidnapping. They're not going to ask any questions. They're automatically thinking in their head, all right, 5-year-old kid kidnapped like this deviant person, right? And so that's the problem with one of the problems with the system. There, it's like they're not going to go deep into that and kind of see what was the actual details of the case, because in most cases, like, it's easier not to.
And from the employer's perspective, I get it. They have 17 applicants and they have to look at them and pick 5 to come in for an interview, right? So they're gonna filter that pretty quickly, but there has to be a way for somebody to almost self-filter themselves or clean their own record. But sometimes it's just not possible. And so I think just from that one mistake at 18 years old, it's like, good luck the rest of your life, because you messed up when you were 18 and your brain wasn't fully developed. You get what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. So if you don't mind me asking, what are some, you had talked about some in prison, there's sort of a quote unquote rehabilitation process to kind of get back to where you mentioned something like not everyone's prepares for their release.
Right.
So when I think about that, I think, okay, let's say someone else was in for 5 to 10 years. There's a lot of time to kind of think about, even if they go in with bad thinking. Let's say not everybody was like you, who had a college degree, great support unit. Obviously, it was almost like 2 lives, right? You got Aaron, who's the bachelor degree, and then Aaron, who's got this side hustle that's a little shady, right? And then so you got in trouble for that half. Okay. But then you're like, well, when I get out, I got my bachelor's, I got some knowledge I gained in here, whatever. But what about the person who doesn't have that thinking? I would think after so many years, there has to be, or should be, I should say, opportunities for this person to have develop leadership or success mindset right? If they choose, if they want to. But I would think after so many years, they would have to be like, okay, I want to get out of here. And I get there's some people who won't prepare, but I can't for the life of me believe that 75% of inmates decide, I don't want to lead my life. Right? Is there a lack of resources? Is there nobody willing to come in and teach? because I get that I was lucky. I had mentors and stuff that jumped in my life. Basically, I allowed them in, but they said, "Hey, I want to give you some things to read that's going to help your life. I want to give you some things to listen to that's going to change completely change the way you've ever thought about life." And I thought, "Wow, this is amazing." So I was able to go through personal development. But if no one's ever had that in their life, right? It's like you don't know what you don't know. So if you didn't grow up with that, how are you supposed to know these things? So is there at all opportunities for the other 75% to like, I hope I'm not just rambling, not making sense, to like actually develop the mindset to go succeed once they get out of the walls?
Yeah, as I stated earlier, it starts while you are behind the wall. And to answer your question, there are, depending on the institution or the prison that you're in, luckily for myself, I won't say luckily, but like the place I was located, it was known as like a program yard, meaning that there were programs that a person can take, right? Whether it was like welding, electrical, right? Painting, HVAC, some of those like blue collar, like trade type of jobs, right? But also, I spent a lot of time in the law library, right? I read a lot, right? We had newspapers that came in, like the Wall Street Journal. I got countless magazines that kind of came in, right? But I think most importantly, it's the company that I surrounded myself with, as I stated earlier. Like that's key, because if you're hanging around people that don't want anything out of life, and that goes for like if you're behind the wall or you're in the free world, right? Like you're not going to succeed. So. But to answer your question, there are opportunities for people to do things depending on where you're at. And like I say, where I was at, that was there. But I was going to make it happen no matter where I was at. If I was in a dungeon, I was going to read. I was going to educate myself, because I've always been a lifelong learner anyway. But for someone that's not like that, it's going to be tough for them, right? It's going to be tough if they weren't at a location that I was at, where I would probably say, if I throw a number on it, I'll probably say out of all the institutions throughout the United States, I'll probably say there's probably a third that's like where I was at, so 30% out of thousands of prisons, right? And so those other prisons, I've heard of certain places where it's like, man, there's nothing to do with that other prison, man. I came here, I can do a whole lot, and so they're out there. And so that's the major problem as well. Like the lack of funding, or even the lack of just wanting to by the staff. You know what I mean? It's easy just to come in and just, do the counting, just not, provide any kind of programming for the men and women that's incarcerated. But it takes an extra step for someone to really care about the men and women's lives and actually put on certain programs. And a lot of programs where I was at was ran by the actual prisoners, like people teaching classes. I was on a reentry committee, and our reentry committee is pretty much a committee on pretty much helping the men re-enter back into society. So it might be resume writing. We had guest speakers kind of come in, but that's an anomaly. You know what I mean? Luckily, I was at that kind of a place. A lot of places aren't like that, and so a person that kind of be SOL. You know what I mean? If they don't have a strong mind already to want to do anything different, if there isn't some kind of programs in play.
I just think back to the things I learned when I was 20, 21, 22, and things that I don't know if I would have heard of if somebody didn't introduce me to the concept of personal development. So like things like you are who you will be in life, who the top 5 people you associate with, those types of things. And so I can't help but wonder if there's got to be other people that have never heard those things. It's no different than someone who's not incarcerated who still hasn't figured out how to advance in life, right? There's people all around us who they work the same dead end job, and they haven't figured out how to get to that next step. They want to, I think. Now, some people just don't want to, but there's some people who want to, and they're just like, I can't figure out how to get out of this hole. And they just, nobody's ever, part of me wonders, maybe they always taught them how to get out of the hole. I would assume it's got to be something similar. I guess that's my feeling when I think, okay, is nobody coming in and teaching some of these guys or ladies how to think differently? Or the ones who already aren't thinking. Obviously, you're kind of an enigma. You already thought differently. You already were preparing. But like, how do we help that other?
Yeah, I think it just needs to be like staff at prisons or the powers that be that to add more programming, to be able to, for instance, like my podcast, I get countless emails from people that hear my podcast behind the wall. They're like, oh my God, it was like, this podcast like really changed my life, right? Like I really need to hear this, right? And so that's super dope. When I was there, I love hearing stories I read countless books about people that kind of overcame situations. So that was like my glimpse into someone's life to be able to say, oh wow, if they made it, I know I can, right? And so be able to have programs like a podcast where guys can hear or women can hear stories of overcoming, and they can see themselves in those stories. That's programming. That's key. That could change someone's life from waking up one day and wanting to slit their wrist to like, you know what? Let me get on top of my business. Let me get my GED. Let me start taking some courses, right? Or let me learn how to be a better father or a better mom.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with exposure too. I mean, think of the environment of prison. We know it's not just rehabilitation, but it's punishment. Right. Somebody's in lockdown for 23 out of 24 hours a day, and all they see, is a cell with no windows, nothing. There's no exposure for better. So all you do have is your mind, but your mind is constantly being worn down and torn down by the environment that you're in that's not conducive for better. So it's kind of we have a long way to go. There's been progress, but I think conversations like this, especially from someone that has already been inside, is going to help move the needle to where it needs to be so we can flip that 75-25 and reverse it, right? But I want to know, man, how you have this amazing story, but you have a shirt on that says Switched Hustles. Tell our audience, man, what that means. A genius idea. If we had saw it, we would have taken it from you, but you've already trademarked it, so it's too late. But tell us, man, not just me and my brother John, but tell our audience what that means and how they can incorporate that in their own lives. Because John just alluded to those people that are working dead-end jobs. They don't know how to make that switch. They don't know how to make that turn. Tell us what that means, man. Unpack that for us.
Yeah, for sure, man. Switch hustles is first. It's a mindset shift. You have to switch your mindset to be able to do anything differently in life. And so I don't want people to think that it's only switching from illicit activities to positive or legitimate businesses. As John spoke on earlier, it's like Switch Hustles is someone that like they've always wanted to open up that coffee shop, right? But they've been on this dead-end job, maybe not even a dead-end job, just like a job they just have to do just to kind of make ends meet. And so they finally kind of stepping out on faith and out their comfort zone and switching up and doing something differently to level up in their lives, and so maybe it's that person that finally wants to go back to school, he's maybe or she's 20 credits away from their bachelor's degree or associate's degree. So they're like, you know what, let me level up in life and let me switch what I'm doing and switch hustles and make things better for myself and for my future generations. So that's basically what it is, switching the mindset and switching hustles to do something to better your lives for yourself and for others.
That's cool. And to clarify, when I say dead end job, so many people are going to think I'm talking about a minimum wage worker at McDonald's who hates it. That would be included if you don't feel like you're going anywhere. But I personally know engineers who've done it for 10 years and hate it. And you can tell because they're not excited about life. And they're just like, yeah, it's fine. It is what it is. Pays the bills or almost paid off my house. It's cool. Right. Like if all you're looking forward to is paying off your house, that life sucks. And so that's what I mean by like, you just don't see the next possibility, or you're not excited about those next steps or growing within that adventure. That's what I really mean by it. So if someone hears me say like dead end job, most people think, oh, it's the McDonald's job or something. That's not at all. Like I know people who worked through McDonald's for 15 years and have done quite well for themselves and moved into corporate spots and stuff like that. So
absolutely. Well, I'm gonna say that I'm not gonna back down from that statement. I'm gonna take it and say there are some of you that are working at McDonald's and you know that you're beneath your potential. And you need to come off that job. That is a dead end job for you. And you haven't switched that mindset. You've got comfortable in that place.
Yeah.
So I agree with John, but I'm going to add on to that some of you are there. Those are dead end jobs as well.
Yes.
Everybody won't be a CEO. Somebody's got to be the janitor. Somebody's got to be the trash man. But as my father told me, it don't have to be you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or if it is you be the best janitor that is.
Be the best. Exactly.
Well, I would say no matter who it is, everybody should appreciate and love the janitor. They're not less. They're not less. They may be happy in that position, right? I know somebody who was homeless a handful of years ago, and his own fault. He was in drugs and his basically was homeless. And today he's a janitor for a school, a public school. What most people don't know is he just finished his pastoral credentials, and he's, going to be a lead pastor at a church here very soon. You know what I mean? As far as I know, I think they might. I don't know if he was offered it or not, but I know it's. You know what I mean? And I've known him less than 10 years. So in 10 years, he went from homeless and drug issues, couldn't see his own kids, to now he's with his wife, has a new baby, and he's going to be.
We had him on our show. We had him on our show.
Did. Yes,
I know who you're talking about now. Yeah.
Yes, and so
Shout out to Matt.
Shout out to Matt Hafflett. He's one of my best friends. I love the guy. He's amazing. So but the reason he's happy doing the janitorial stuff is it's a means to his next step.
There you go. Exactly. What advice would you give to an entrepreneur, bro? Because I think you're killing the game.
Thank you.
With your Instagram, you're killing it, bro.
Super proud of what you're doing.
Super. I mean, amazing. What would you say to an aspiring entrepreneur that may be struggling, or maybe doesn't think that they can be, or they are an entrepreneur and don't think that, okay, I can't get to that next level? What advice could you give them from the experiences that you've had as an entrepreneur to encourage the struggling entrepreneur?
Yeah, that man, God gives us a gift, only for us. You know what I mean? Like, it's even if other people don't understand it, innately in your spirit, like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You just got to keep pushing at it, like, whether you're making money from it or not. You know what I'm saying? You just have to stick through with that passion, because eventually, like, the monies and all that kind of stuff will come. And it's taking me now, like, to kind of realize that. So I'm speaking to myself as well. You know what I mean? As I say that, because we want things right away, or we look at shiny things, right? We look at things other people is doing, and we like, oh wow, maybe I could just do that. But that's not what God gave you. You know what I mean? And so to kind of hone in on your own gift and turning that gift into your business is like one of the greatest joys, I believe. And it's like you're not working, you know what I mean? Because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so that's what I would say, like, to find your gift and, like, to stick through with it, even when it feels like nothing is coming out of it. I never would have thought in a million years that escaping odds, my prison experience will be like who I've become. You know what I mean? Like, my personal life and my professional life is together. You know what I mean? And so I think that it wouldn't have been that way had I not recognized what God has given me. You know what I'm saying? This gift and perspective. I know I'm kind of going off, but this is what's on my spirit. Like, perspective, looking at my incarceration differently. You know what I mean? And, like, if I was a bitter while I was away, I would have never been able, like, to take those nuggets and be like, wow, you know what? These are great men that I'm coming across inside of prison, and they really have great stories and great business insight. Let me tell those stories once I get out, Like, I would have been so wrapped up in my own bitterness that I wouldn't have been able to see what God was giving me at the time, and it wouldn't be an escape to odds. And so, I'm not saying it's easy. What I'm doing, it's like, there's been countless times where I'll be like, I'm not making any money off of this. You know what I mean? Like, I continue to do it, and then I'll get that email from somebody, right? Or somebody will reach out to me, hey, I love your show. You know what I mean? Like, I think you should keep on doing what you're doing. And so that's what kind of keep me going. So I hope you guys got that wrapped up in all of that.
Yes.
Great answer.
Live in your gift and God will make room for you. So
there you go. Absolutely.
That's a Steve Harvey favorite quote.
Is it? Yeah. Put you before great kings.
Basically, Aaron, what you said is don't be afraid to get unscripted, right? Don't follow everybody else's script. Hence Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast. Don't be afraid to follow the script that God gave you, even if it looks crazy, even if it sounds crazy to everybody else, Because the reality is they don't understand it because God didn't give it to them. He gave it to you.
Absolutely.
Right? So, of course, you don't understand the dream. You don't understand the vision because you weren't there when he gave it to me.
Yeah. And at the same time, it's like you're escaping the odds that's stacked against you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you can be at that quote unquote that dead end job, you know, and but you're not, right? You're operating in your gift and making it work.
Yeah. John, do you have anything else, bro? I see you writing. You just
just something you said, man. I'm writing down so I don't forget.
I got you.
That quote about God's vision won't make sense for everybody else.
Yeah.
God's vision for you is not gonna make sense to everybody else. It wasn't made for them.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I don't want to go on a huge biblical tangent, but we know about the story of Joseph and his brothers.
Yes, sir.
You know, Joseph was a dreamer. They didn't like that. They didn't understand it. They want to throw this man into the pit and kill the man because he had a dream. Yeah. You know, but you can't kill the dreamer. You know, people can kind of kill the dream, but you can't kill the dreamer inside the dream. And so, bro, just keep on going, and it's just amazing, amazing. This is probably one of my favorite episodes.
That's great,
just because it was just a great conversation, bro. It really was.
Thank you all, man. I really love and enjoy being on here, man. I love and appreciate authentic conversations, man. Authenticity, you know. And so that's what I'm all about. Like my podcast is like this, you know. It's unscripted, you know what I mean? Like I get on, we have a conversation. Of course, I know the direction I want to go, but at the end of the day, it's like we just having a conversation, a real talk.
Absolutely. And listen, to our audience, those that were watching to listen to this, we want you to stay connected with Aaron. One of the ways that you can do that is on Instagram. His Instagram handle is @EscapingTheOddsMedia. Go follow him there. Connect with him on LinkedIn, Aaron Smith. Also, check out his amazing website, EscapingTheOdds.com. Stay connected here with us at Unscripted. You can follow us on all our social media platforms at Unscripted Leadership, unscripted-leadership.com. And of course, our podcast is available on all podcast streaming platforms. As always, we pray that you be the leader that God has called you to be. We're here to build bridges and not walls. Bridges connect and walls divide. Until next time, God bless you.
Can I say one thing before we go off? Stop you. I'm sorry. Just want to let the audience know that I had just created a new company called U-Turn Transport, where I hired one driver already who's over the road, and pretty much I hire all formerly incarcerated to kind of teach them eventually how to have their own equipment and kind of go over the road and make money themselves. And so because I knew there was a lot of people that were incarcerated that actually want to get into the truck and the transportation industry, and I do that kind of work in my day job. I'm an actual dispatcher for a freight broker. So I'm like, hey, let me go ahead and knock this out. And so I wanted to let the audience know that that's one of the things that I'm doing. And if anybody know of anyone that is looking for, get into the transportation industry or need any loads moved, we definitely can do that for you as well. Any distributors or warehouses out there.
And you are hiring even those that have federal record. I think that's amazing.
No, absolutely. Like I wanted to every one of my drivers to be able to like have had some kind of justice involved. Like maybe they weren't incarcerated, maybe just have a record or something, right? Give them an opportunity to get behind the wheel and actually eventually own their own equipment, whether it's a cargo van, box truck, or a tractor trailer, and kind of give them the game and kind of take it to the next level. So so that's what the podcast is about, entrepreneurship. I want to actually go from not only just telling the stories, but create opportunities too. So that's what I'm doing.